Hi everyone and welcome to Curly and Yarny. I'm Melena and today's video is a very special video because it is made in collaboration with the company Textile, and I will be weaving a fall campfire scarf. So let's get to it. I'm very excited to be working with Textile for this project today. First of all, they are a very cool Canadian company, so that's something I'm always happy to work with. But secondly, we share the same values and the same vision or mission, if you prefer, with the creation of what we do. So their mission is to bring people together through an exchange of ideas, and so that we can learn from each other and basically celebrate making things with our own hands, which is essentially what I always aim to do with my videos. I also always try to bring people together into weaving, bring people to be weaving, and make it easier for people to get started on a rigid Heddle Loom. How will it work for today's video? It will not be very different than any other videos I've made so far. So I will be making this scarf on my rigid Heddle Loom, and I will be giving you hints and tips for some technical parts of the projects. And if you want to do the same project at home, I will provide a link to Textile website, because on their website they will be selling kits. So they will be selling exactly what you need to make the exact same project that I am making today. So you will get all the yarn in the right colors, and you will also be provided a very detailed description or pattern, or if you prefer, instruction on making the scarf, which is a little extra than what I'm doing today. So without further ado, let's start talking about the scarf for today. So as I said, the fall collection theme is campfire. So for me, fall and campfire, it rhymes with plaid. So I was really inspired by the plaid for this project. Still, I wanted the plaid to be a little different, so I will be playing around with colors for some of the plaid squares. So I feel like when we weave with rigid Heddle looms, we often, if you want to do like kind of visual effect with colors, we will often do the houndstooth, or we would be doing the log cabin. But for this project, I want to do something different than those two patterns that we usually do. And because of that, they are a little bit different. There's a little bit of technicality for the warping, but mostly for the weaving, I will show you my technique to make sure that I ace this color effect. So let's stay tuned for this, but more precisely on the project. So the yarn I'm using is alpaca silk yarn, which is a very soft and luxurious yarn. It's quite thin, so the size is 214. So for the project, I will be using my 12.5 Heddle, and I will be doubling the yarn in my Heddle. Also, for the colors used, this one here is beige. This one is brun, so brown, and I will also be using this royal blue, which will be a very nice pop of color in the scarf. So here's a screenshot of my Excel file of what the warping will be. So for most of the warping, it will be pretty straightforward. So how we warp usually for the colors. The particularly will be where we see only few lines of brown and few lines of beige. So this is where it gets a little trickier, and this is where the color effect will happen. And so this is where I will mostly explain to you how I do it. So I'm direct warping this project for two reasons. The first one is that I will be making two scarves with the same warp, and so because when you get those cones of yarn, they are very big, so you have more than enough to be making two whole scarves with them. So I wanted to show you different possibilities of pattern you could do with the same warp. So if you wanted to make two scarves with this yarn, well, you could warp your loom 2 times and then make the scarf, or you could warp 1 time, a very long warp, to make the 2 scarves, which I'm doing today. The second reason why I'm doing it the indirect method, is because I went hiking 2 days ago and I hurt my ankle very bad. So I cannot be standing for too long, and I couldn't be walking for a lot of meters around the room like that. So I need to stay sitting down for a few days. So the indirect warping method was the best option for me. And funnily enough, my ankle is starting to have the same color as my work, so coincidence? I don't know. So for the indirect warping method, by now I should have a video out right here in which I explain to you how I do it. Still, this is it is still feasible the direct method way. So basically, for the first part of the warping, it's very straightforward. So I simply follow my pattern. Just note that I'm doubling my warp yarn. So usually when I indirect warp, when I go all the way through my board one time, that means that's one thread, so I will go into one slot or into one hole. But since I'm doubling, well then this when I need to go all the way through and back, so this will make me two threads, so those two threads will be into one slot or into one hole. The same way in the direct method, when we pull out a loop and we want to double the yarn, and we will pull a loop out of the slot and out of the holes. To double the yarn. So if you want to know a bit more about how I double the yarn, I have been through this quite a lot in my videos about weaving a spring scarf. So a new season, but still the same technique. So it's pretty well explained in deep, so you would, if you don't understand quite how I do it. I will simply keep warping now for this. So I'm at the part where it's the trickiest, or I consider the trickiest. So this is where I want to do the color pattern. So 2 brown, 1 beige, and for this for 2 inches. So let's start with the 2 brown. I attach it here. So I make it go here and then back. So even though this could be considered like 2 warp threads, which they are 2 warp threads, but they will be into only one of the slots or one of the holes. So this I consider as 1, because they belong together for this pattern as I'm doubling the yarn. So and now 2. I cut it, I fix it, and now with the bag. And I will continue like that for the number I wanted. I have them, I don't remember by heart, but I'll do this for a few times. So welcome back. Now I'm getting ready to start the color effect in the pattern. So I've been talking about this color effect since the beginning of this video. So I'm gonna explain to you how I do it. It's not really hard, it's just that in order to do this pattern I need 3 shuttles, and there's a little trick to managing those 3 shuttles at the same time. There will be 2 variants of the pattern. My color pattern has 3 picks that I repeat all the way for 2 inches. So the 3 picks for this sequence, the first one is the same sequence that I have in the warp, which means it is 2 brown, 1 beige, 2 brown, 1 beige. So I will do this all the way through. So I will need 3 shuttles, so 1 brown, a second brown, and a beige. They will always be woven one at a time, one after the other. So it will always be this one first, then the second, the big one, brown, the second, and the third one will be the beige. I'm luckily enough that my stand has two little tablets on each side, so I can lay my shuttles on both of them while I'm weaving. If you don't have a stand or you don't have those little tablets on the side of your stand, I recommend using maybe small tables or chairs to be able to lay the shuttles there. Usually when I weave, I let the shuttle either on my work or on my lap, but if I were to do that during this part of the pattern, it would get messy very, very quick. So I'll start the pattern. So the first pick will be brown with my first shuttle, so the small brown shuttle, the one that is the fullest. In my pattern, I am now here, so in between the color pattern, I always weave 2 inches of beige. So the last pick I did was beige, so I will not cut it. This will stay here, so this will allow me not to have to make color changes there. So when I'm ready to weave the first pick of beige, it will already be there and ready. So first pick of brown. And now I am ready for the second pick of brown. So now I am on this side of the loom in the upper shed. So I will use my second shuttle. So the big one which has just a little bit of brown on it. And now I need to do the third pick, which will be beige. So this is the last pick of the sequence. And I weave it here. So, just like that, the first 3 picks of the color pattern is done. So now I will keep doing that. Now I'm back at the first shuttle. So it was the small shuttle, the small brown one. So it's right here. So where I am now ready to weave at, where I left off with the last pick. So now I want to do the second pick of my sequence. So I just finished the first pick with the first shuttle. So what I do, I put it on the tablet at the far endmost of the tablet. So let me show you when I'm finished with it. So this was the last pick I did. So I put it here. So there was already a shuttle here. So the shuttle that's been here, I just push it. This one I put here. And I know that this one is the next, the one that is the closest to my loom. So I take it, I weave. Beat it. I'm back in the up position and I'll be back with you too, like that. So this is the shuttle of the pick that I just wove. So I will do the same thing on the other side that I did with the tablets, but you don't see it so well. So there's already a shuttle here. So this shuttle I pushed inside. This one I leave it on the tablet, and I take the shuttle that was already there, and I'll weave it. With this method, I find it keeps order between the shuttles, so it takes a few picks to just get used to it. But once I'm used to it, it just goes very quickly. I just finish the pick, put it on. Just let me show you again. Finish the pick. I put it here. I push this one. I know this one is the next one, and so on. So I don't even have to think about the pattern anymore. I just always take the next shuttle and it goes smoothly. So now I am at the part where I'm gonna weave the second variant of the color pattern, but on the warp I have 2 brown, 2 beige, so I will be doing the opposite. I will be doing the opposite of that, so I will be doing 2 beige and 1 brown. So I have prepared my shuttle. So I already have this shuttle here that's already attached to my loom. So this will be my first shuttle. Then I have my second shuttle of beige. I know there's already blue in it, but I put a bit of beige on the other side, so it's really beige that I'm weaving with this shuttle. And my third one, the brown one, for my one pick of brown. So remember, every shuttle for me is one pick of the pattern, and I will repeat the same pattern for 2 inches. So the third pick of the pattern will be brown. So that's it. This is my first shuttle. So I'm gonna attach my other beige shuttle from this side of the loom. Now I am back with the other shuttle. This will be shuttle number 3. I have one sequence of the pattern made, so I continue. So first shuttle the brown one. Selvages, they're a little bit different than when I was doing just normal weaving, but really it doesn't really show that much. It really isn't bulky at all. We still need to be kind of more mindful of the selvages, I find, when we're doing this part of the pattern, but really it's an easy thing. So now we're off to weaving the second scarf. So for this scarf, I'm doing a different weft pattern. Of course, we are working with the same warp pattern, but in the weft we can mix things up a little and do something totally different. In the first scarf, I had large blocks of colors, especially for the parts where I tried to represent those parts of the warp. In this one, I tried to be more, I tried to make smaller blocks of colors, especially for those. So basically what I do is that I weave this first part here of the warp into the weft, and I try to make it as balanced as possible. Then I do 6 picks of beige, and then I move on to this part here of the pattern, so the part of the warp pattern where I have the color effect. And I'm doing something different in the first scarf. So in the first scarf I was only using 2 colors, but for this one I'm using 3 colors. So I'm having my 3 shuttles, and on each of my shuttles I have one of the color, and I make 1 pick of each color. So it's very simple when you think about it, 1 pick of each color, but it makes a very fun and very nice pattern. I'll show you how I do the fun color pattern here. So this part here where I make 1 pick of each of the colors. So it's basically the same way as I did in the first scarf. So I'm gonna go very quick about it. But maybe it's even easier to understand with this because each shuttle has its own color. So basically I'm just repeating the same sequence of colors. So if I base myself on the last one, I do brown, blue, beige, and so on. So as I did the little separation here with the beige yarn, so this is already attached to my loom, so this will stay here, and I will start with the brown. Both the scarves are now done. They've been wet finished and everything. So I want to tell you a little bit more about both of them separately. But first I wanted to show you the cone of yarn after weaving those 2 scarves. So I said in the beginning that there were a lot of yarn in those cones, and it is true. So here's the beige one. So I did use more beige than any of the other colors. So this one is not empty, but close to being empty. Then there's still a fair amount of brown left, and I still have a lot of blue left, so I could probably be able to make another project with those yarn, but this other project would have to be more blue than the other colors, which is fine. But just to show you how much yarn you get in those bobbins of very nice alpaca silk yarn. I'll start with the first. In order to keep the integrity of the pattern, I kept weaving for a few more inches than what I intended in the beginning. The reason for that is that I really wanted that the beginning and the end would be the same. So here we see that I started with a part of the brown patch, and I finished also with a brown part of the pattern, and then I have a little bit of beige, the color effect, a little bit of beige, and then the blue pattern. So it's all very asymmetrical. The only difference is that I see from here the 2 different color pattern that I made. So I see the one where I used 2 picks of brown, and here it's 2 picks of beige. So this is it for this first scarf. Now for the second one. So again, it's the same warp pattern. The only difference is how I play with color in the weft. So for the second one, the scale of the pattern is much shorter. So this is actually the whole repeat of the pattern. So I'm doing more like highlights of the color patterns that I have, and I repeated this whole sequence all the way through the scarf, and I made sure that at the end I did one more block of brown to make sure that again the scarf will be symmetrical, so the beginning and the end will be exactly the same when we wear them. I'm very satisfied with how it turned out. I think it's a very nice example of how one warp can give 2 fairly different results. Of course, the same colors, but the way the color effects acts and everything, I feel like they are quite different. So this is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to subscribe to my channel, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.